Shabbat Shalom. You guys know that I give up the bima begrudgingly, but this week I'm going to do just that. The two portions that we read today, the Torah portion and the Haftorah, talk about a times of turmoil and conflict within the Jewish people. So as much as we are worried about, we read yesterday in the Torah about the Amalekites, implacable foes attacking us from the outside. The truth is that sometimes we are our own worst enemies from within. The conflict within us, whether it is around the golden calf or Elijah and the prophets. And so sometimes the greatest challenges are actually finding our own direction as a people before we even worry about anyone else. And so even though the enemies, even though the dangers that Israel faces externally are, I don't want to say unprecedented, that word gets thrown around too much, but are quite serious, the issues of how we actually find our way as a people, particularly in the face of that pressure, are just as dire and just as important as ever. And that's why this week we have a very important visitor. Yitzhar Hess is the vice chair of the World Zionist Organization. This is the venue through which the World Zionist Congress, which controls the World Zionist Organization, is the lever through which Jews around the world have a say in the direction of our Jewish people. And we are really very fortunate to have Yitzhar with us. He is the vice chair of the World Zionist Organization, but he has visited us before, and we have actually had a chance to be guests with him in Israel. He was the Jewish agency. He has a long history of service to our Jewish people. He was a shaliach to Tucson, Arizona. He worked for the Jewish agency as director of partnerships. He was the executive director of the Masorti movement in Israel, really helping Jews like us in Israel have their place. And in particular, led the negotiations. If you've ever been to the part of the Kotel where men and women can pray together, he was essential in the negotiations that made that happen. So if you've ever had or been to a bar bat mitzvah at the Kotel where they didn't throw stuff at you, other than candy, you can thank Yitzhar. He's a member of the Israeli Bar. He has a master's in Jewish studies, a PhD, and he wrote a book called Questions About God. And he is also a 10th generation resident of Jerusalem, although he actually today lives in Modi'in, so you gave it up for a nicer apartment, right? Greater Jerusalem. But I'm really delighted to have him with us. And Yitzhar, I think you know one of our members of our slate, Anna Serviansky, is here, so you can explain what this all means. All right, I turn it over to Yitzhar Hess, and thank you for giving him a good welcome.
Shabbat Shalom. 526 days passed since October 7th. 526 days. We are counting the days, and 59 are still held in Gaza, 59 hostages. 526 days, and every day I thank God for the fact that my son, Achiad, was not in Israel on October 7th. Achiad is 28 years old. He's a student at the Hebrew University, and it was the last week of the summer vacation. So Achiad was trekking in Nepal. He didn't hear anything that Shabbat, not on Motzei Shabbat, not even on Sunday. Only on Sunday evening, when he reached a guest house and met a few Israelis, he learned about the atrocities in Israel. And from that moment on, he did whatever he could in order to come back home. So he walked for a day until he reached the nearest road, then rented a Jeep in a ridiculous price. 10 hours on a bumpy road, reached an airport, took a plane to the capital of Nepal, bought a ticket to Israel via Mumbai, India, only to discover that in order to fly via Mumbai, you need an Indian visa, which he didn't have, so we had to toss this ticket, bought another one, this time via the Emirates, and was able to land in Israel on Thursday. We waited for him at the airport, Yael, my wife, and myself. We took him home, a quick meal, a decent shower, and he went to his unit. He served for more than 6 months in Gaza. And thank God that Achiad was not in Israel on October 7th, because I know my son, he would have rushed to his unit on that Shabbat morning, would have put his hands on whatever rifle he could get, and would have gone to the Gaza envelope to defend as many villages, to save as many civilians. According to the statistics of that Shabbat, the majority of soldiers that were not in duty and did what I just described did not make it to Motzei Shabbat, did not survive. So thank God that Achiad was not in Israel on October 7th. Unfortunately, this is not the case for so many Israeli families. If you would have asked me, like a month after October 7th, how long will it take us to win this battle in the south? I would have told you like another few weeks, maybe a little more. Who would imagine that it would be more than a year and a half, 526 days since October 7th? And we are still, in so many ways, in October 7th. We are not on October 8th yet. If you were to visit Israel after October 7th, I'm sure that you notice that it's a different country. The streets, the mood, even on private simchas, you feel it. The playlist is slightly different. The volume is different. Israel is not on October 8th yet. And it's a good question what it needs to bring us to October 8th. So first and foremost, it is definitely bringing back the 59 hostages, but it's not only that. I think we need to think about the ways that Israel needs to be built again after October 7th. October 8th needs to have this kind of constitutional moment in our country. It will be built, I think, Israel of October 8th on a few pillars. One of them is, of course, security. We need to enhance the security of the state of Israel. We learned that we are not protected enough. We were caught in a hubris kind of feeling that we know how to defend the country and it would work well. Well, it didn't work well. So definitely investing in the security system is something that needs to occur. The second pillar has to do with our democracy. We learned in the 10 months prior to October 7th, because as much as October 7th was a nightmare and still is, we need to remember that October 6th was not a paradise either. Do you remember the 10 months prior to October 6th, when so many hundreds of thousands of Israelis were demonstrating in the street against their duly elected government? You know, Israel was torn on issues of democracy. I think that when October 8th comes, one of the things that we would need to invest in is Israel's democracy. We do not have enough checks and balances. Now, you have a role in the Israel of October 8th as well. You have a role, you Jews who do not live in Israel. We are fortunate to have a platform that allows Jews from all over the world not only to have a voice when it comes to Israel, but also to have a vote. It's a gift that we received from Theodor Herzl. Herzl established the World Zionist Congress, and in 1948, the ultimate goal of the Zionist movement, the ultimate goal of the Congress was established. We have a Jewish state. And from that moment on, the same democratic platform that Theodor Herzl put together serves us to run the assets of the Jewish people. And we have assets that do not belong to the government of Israel, not to the people of Israel solely, but belongs to all of us as a collective. One of our assets is the Jewish Agency. The Jewish Agency that runs programming, that sends shlichim to Ramah camps, to shinshinim, emissaries all over. The Jewish Agency that does projects that connects, diaspora Jewry and Israel. The Jewish Agency that sent to Ukraine when the war broke out 3 years ago, sent emissaries to the border to help every Jew who came to the border, to, a flight, a hotel room, a blanket, a hot meal. Natan Sharansky wrote about it, that it was the first war in the history where it was better to be a Jew in the queue because your mishpacha was waiting for you on the border. So the Jewish Agency is essential. This is one of our assets, a company with a budget of over $500 million a year. But our biggest asset, and the most important one, is Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, JNF. Not JNF USA, which is a different entity. I'm talking about Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, JNF Israel. The same company that Theodor Herzl founded in 1901 in order to purchase land in Israel. The land was bought, and today, 17% of the land in Israel is owned by the Jewish people, is owned by Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael, by JNF, by the Jewish National Fund. 17% is a lot, and this land bears fruit economically from rentals, from developments. And today we have on the budget of Keren Kayemet L'Yisrael a yearly budget that exceeds $2 billion a year. $2 billion a year, a huge amount of money that, again, doesn't belong to the government of Israel, not to the state of Israel, belongs to all of us together, belongs to the World Zionist Congress. The World Zionist Congress has 525 seats, third of them from Israel, two-thirds from the rest of the world. Third from the US and third from the rest of the world. So together we run our assets every 5 years, elections. On March 10th, here in the US, the elections for the World Zionist Congress began, and it's run via the AZM. It's easy to vote, yet last time, on 2020, when we had elections, we had a tragedy, almost a tragedy, I would say. Apathy almost killed us. I represent Mercaz. Mercaz is the Masorti conservative slate to the Congress. So our Masorti conservative voice in this world scene, and we here in the US, we received 15,000 votes. There are 7.5 million Jews in North America. By the way, North America, Canada, and the US together. 7.5 million Jews. I hope I didn't make now a political statement. So I'm going backwards. 7 million Jews in the US only. We got 15,000 votes. The Reform did a little better. Their slate, Arza, got 26 or 27,000 votes. You know who did well? The Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox. They founded the slate. They joined, actually, the Zionist movement just in 2020. Okay, because of various reasons, they decided to join. You know, they were the biggest opponents to Herzl and his vision. They joined in 2020, a slate with one goal only, and they declared it, they didn't hide it, to push us, to push non-Orthodox Jewry from the one place that we do have a seat at the table. And they were able to mobilize their people in a significant way. They brought, in the first time that they ran from only 5 neighborhoods in New York area, they were able to bring 20,000 votes. And it shifted the forces in the Congress. It shifted the forces in the Congress because the first time from Herzl, the first time since the establishment of the Zionist movement, the pluralistic side of Zionist thinking became a minority. Not an insignificant minority, but a minority. Now, it had ramifications. One of the tasks of the Jewish Agency, for instance, is to oversee the process of eligibility to make Aliyah. This is one of the historic tasks of the Jewish Agency. And today, on the board of governors of the Jewish Agency, there are Haredi Jews that were elected to sit there democratically. I have no complaints. But according to their outlook, a conservative Masorti convert is not Jewish, and a Reform convert is not Jewish. It's a discourse that was never part of the Zionist movement, the widest tent of the Zionist movement, and we are now coping with some more danger, because the only place where the Masorti movement and its institutions, the Masorti movement, the different Kehilot, Noam, the Tali school system, the Schechter Institute, the only source of funding is from the national institutions, from the Congress. Because as we all know, in Israel, Masorti conservative Judaism is not recognized officially and is not funded at all. So that was the only, and still is, the only source of funding. And now it's also under risk because of the fact that the makeup of North American Jewry in the Congress is not relevant to the true makeup of North American Jewry. Today, it's as if 20% of North American Jewry are Haredim ultra-Orthodox, which is definitely not the case. Apathy almost killed us. Now, this is our task today, to make sure that each and every one who sits here today votes to the World Zionist Congress. To our slate is Mercaz, number 17. This is the number of the slate. It's the only slate that Jewish pluralism in Israel and in the rest of the world, this is the main focus of what we do. It's not the only one, but it's the main thing that we are committed to. Now, in order to vote in the Congress, you need to be Jewish, over 18, and you need to be Zionist, and you need to pay the Zionist shekel. Now, this is interesting because it links us directly to this week's parasha. What is the Zionist shekel? It's a symbolic sum of money that you need to pay in order to be part of the building. Okay? And it is taken from this week's parasha. It is taken from machatzit shekel, half of the shekel that the Israelites, each family, had to bring in order to build the temporary Mishkan in the desert. So machatzit shekel turned from the first Zionist Congress until now, today, to be HaShekel HaTzioni, the Zionist shekel. Our task today is to take back ownership on what Zionism is. God forbid if Zionism will be taken by only one segment of Jewish thinking. That would be a disaster. Not only a disaster for the future of Zionism as a movement, but disaster for the future of the state of Israel. Israel needs you. Israel to be a thriving Jewish and democratic state, democratic and Jewish state, Yehudit ודמוקרטית בדיבור אחד, all at once. Israel needs an active participation of world Jewry. Herzl, with his activism, allowed us to be part of a tool that would help Israel get to October 8th stronger and better, more Jewish and more democratic. It means that on Motzai Shabbat, I would encourage you to take this card, to scan the QR, and to vote at the AZM webpage. Slate number 17, it would give us the power that is needed in order to make sure that Israel would celebrate its 100th anniversary in a better shape. Shabbat Shalom.